Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Where Are You on the Drama Triangle? Identify your sabotaging patterns to empower self-love and conscious relationships. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really excited and curious to be with you here, getting to explore a really important topic to virtually all of us, which is the drama triangle. And we're going to learn a lot more about what that is and how we can use that to free ourselves from a lot of unhelpful patterns and particularly shift our relationships. And this is really at the heart of how do we create sacred, fulfilling, whole relationships with ourselves and with other people. And ultimately, that's part of how we live our sacred purpose on this planet. So we're going to get to do this with a very cool teacher and researcher. Her name is Reverend Tiffany Jean Barsotti. She's a medical intuitive, a spiritual counselor, and a researcher in the biofield. We've done a number of programs with her that have focused more around special places in your chakra system that you can get guidance, and really cool, interesting research that she's done. So Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us here to illuminate the drama triangle and how we get beyond it.
Thank you so much. And I know it's a little bit of a departure, Stephen, than what we've done in the past. And this is really just calling to my heart at every level, in every dimension right now, how we need to get out of these normalized pathologies that we've done on the drama triangle and make some changes. So I'm eager to go into this topic with you.
Great. Well, we're going to dive in. I know you've got a lot planned for us today. And I also want to let everybody know that we're going to have a brand new program all about freeing yourself from the drama triangle. And we're going to share more about that at the end of the hour. So, Tiffany, let's start with a little bit of your personal backstory and how it relates to the drama triangle, since it sounds like most of us, are in it to one degree or another in parts of our lives. So, how did you first start becoming aware of this drama triangle in your own life, and then seeing it in clients as well?
Yeah, I actually had an Alta Major moment. I'm a teacher and researcher of the Alta Major chakra, which is known as the Mouth of God and Mouth of Goddess. And these are some of the programs that we've done together on Shift. And it's very much my passion. And I had, you could say, an Alta Major moment as this sort of happened for me. So little mini backstory is that I was in graduate seminary studying my transpersonal psychology work, and we were taught the drama triangle. And much to my surprise, I have found that many therapists in training do not get taught the drama triangle. And the drama triangle is victim, rescuer, persecutor. It was something that was made popular by Dr. Stephen Cartman in the 60s, mid-60s. And it became sort of popularized where we could see, people are falling into a victim pattern or a persecutor pattern or a rescuer pattern. And I remember learning this in school and going, oh my God, this is hugely important. This is really important. And then skip to now when I am seeing clients, and I still don't feel like I have the answers. I still feel incredibly frustrated that I needed, after all this training, after $100,000 education, I expected to have more answers than I did. So one day, in a fit with God, the creator, I was just so done. I walked out of my office. It was pouring rain. I was living in San Diego, and that's where my practice was. And it was pouring rain, and I was just fist pumping, kind of a little bit of I'll say a nice rage, but I probably had some, not so nice words. And so all of a sudden I was like, what the hell? It's not what I said. Are the answers off the drama triangle? And I'm getting rained upon. I couldn't get in my car fast enough. And the answers started coming fast and furious. And it was very simple, but it's taken me the last 14 plus years maybe to unpack. So the answers are letting go, building trust and faith, and empowered surrender. And these are not necessarily easy places. They are not exactly as the words described. They've got their own definitions that have come over time. And I just sat there for the next hour writing whatever was coming into me. in this literal downpour that was happening outside, with the downpour was happening inside me.
What a fascinating backstory. I love the parallel with the downpour and what's coming in. So let's talk a little bit about the drama triangle. First of all, maybe like, why do we actually fall into this pattern of rescuer, victim, persecutor? What's the sort of the deeper narrative that is so compelling for us to fall into there?
Yeah, I wish it wasn't so, but it is. It's, most of us are products of our environment. And I call this, it's a seductive loop that we've learned early in childhood. And even though we don't mean to, it's just these natural habits that get associated in our family's pattern of how it is that we essentially work to get our needs met. Some of us do it with more of a manipulation. All children manipulate to some way or to some end, because we're trying to figure out where the boundaries are. We're trying to figure out what is safe, who we can trust, what we can trust. And so we'll really push the edges as kids. And then that sets off usually a stress response in our parents. And then there it is. We usually act in the way that was present to us when we were younger. So, if we ever devolve, I'll say to, oh my gosh, I sound like my mom, or oh my God, I sound like my grandmother or my father or my grandfather. We just go back to the habits and the patterns of what we did in order to cope and try to get our needs met. So that's why, how it gets set up.
And so what if maybe go a little deeper into each of the archetypes, and so we kind of understand them from the inside and out, and therefore see. So it's not like we always identify with one. It sounds like maybe we switch around a little bit depending on the situation.
We do. What I've noticed, even though we can really be more at a default place where predominantly we can operate more as the rescuer. That was my default pattern. And I always say I'm a recovering codependent. So that's the rescuer, victim, persecutor are the three spots on the triangle. I'll stick with the rescuer here for just a moment. The rescuer is essentially the wounded healer, the empath, the one that's overfeeling everybody's everything. It is the I would say overly empathic, the pleaser, trying to keep peace at all costs, wants harmony at all costs. So you can see that if there's disruption in the family life, we as rescuers are going to jump in and try and make everything all better. That's not a role for a child, but it's where the habit got going. And we really need people, and especially parents, to be responsible for their own emotions. But because children, and I mean this in the most loving and narcissistic way, children are narcissistic. I mean this in the most loving of way, but everything revolves around us as a child. Why are my mom and dad fighting? It must be because of me. Why are they getting a divorce? It must be because of me. Why is there unrest in any way, shape, or form? We personalize it deeply. And so then we really try and fix it, because if we think that the very fabric or the foundation of our home is going to fall apart, we won't have a home and we won't be loved. So that's at the core pretty much of all of them. Then you have the victim. The victim and the rescuer keep each other in a job. So they will go back and forth, and the rescuer wants to help and wants to, get somebody out of a situation, but the victim kind of doesn't want to. It's a kind of a learned helplessness. Now, let me tease out the difference between victim and victimhood. The victim, we all have been victim to things in our lives. That's just, stuff happens. It's okay. What we do with it as a response is what turns us into whether or not we will become the archetype or act in victimhood of victim. And that is where the sky is falling. Nothing ever works out for me. Why is everything bad happening to me? That's victim language. And so what the rescuer will often do is rush in to help and undo that sort of pattern, or try to. But the victim is ultimately needing to learn his own agency. But if we didn't have room when we were a child to express our innate emotions, such as anger, in order to properly set boundaries, and the onslaught, whether it was abuse of any type, soft abuse, verbal abuse, hard abuses in the frame of things being done to us in harm, sexual abuse, any of the abuses, and they keep happening. This is a way that victimhood can get set in and teach us that that's a way of life. But that's just what happened as we adapted in our childhood. But it doesn't have to be the way of life, but that the victim needs to unlearn that. So that's a process. The persecutor is the other portion of the activity that gets on this drama triangle. The persecutor is the one that's angry, the one that is narcissistic, bully-like, creates arguments, has emotional temper tantrums in order to control the conditions, wants power and control over everybody. I often describe the whole drama triangle as the blame and control game, and very much that comes alive in the persecutor. The persecutor will blame and look for ways of controlling, because deep down inside, the persecutor is actually very sad and didn't get his or her needs met when they were very young. So mad is what happens. The bully gets aggravated and more fire comes up. And in some ways, you could say that's a healthier reaction than going into victim. But when it degrades into narcissism and bullying and controlling everyone else for their betterment, that is not thinking of a greater whole. And that's why the realization of, all right, well, where's my default? Because we all have one. And learning that pattern about how it is that we respond to stress and what are the habits that we use and need in order to get our needs met. And we will see how these patterns play out over and over and over again until we decide to do something different. But that's essentially the three archetypes, if you will, in the blame control game: victim, rescuer, persecutor.
I know. I imagine it's some often harder to self-diagnose in things because it's like a lot of times there's unconscious dynamics. So how do you start to really accurately understand where we're playing this out in our own life? I mean, is there certain kind of language cues or repetitive stories, or what are some of the dynamics you want to look at to sort of see where we are in the triangle?
Yeah, so one of them that I was just using as a kind of a good ideal is like the victim. You know, why is this happening to me? Why is the sky always falling on my head? What is it that I keep doing that attracts these situations or people to me? And so that is, if that is an internal language that we have going on, then there's going to be more identifying with coming from a victimhood mindset. So what we also learn from that is learned helplessness. So because people will try and jump in and help. And when it works, when we be the victim and it works and we get our needs met, woo, okay, well, now we just got a dopamine hit and we got some oxytocin because I've got more connection now than I ever had. So I'll keep playing this game. And so the victim sort of learns that it gets its needs met by crying all the time, being so wounded and hurt. A commonality from our health perspective for both the rescuer and the victim is a lot of autoimmune issues. So if there's a person suffering with autoimmune or, autotoxicity or things like that, it would be good to do some soul searching about the mindset, about where it is that you might be defaulting on the drama triangle. So the rescuer can also fall in those same buckets as far as the health concerns, but it's jumping in very quickly. So this is sort of the languaging, like, let me help you. Let me take care of that for you. Let me do that. And it's because the value and the worth has been attached to, if I give more, then I will get loved more. But what starts to happen is when a rescuer will jump in when their help has not been asked for, it's annoying. And it is actually a breaking of a boundary. And people will start to get angry and push back on us. And it's really, it's nice to have a codependent around for a little while, because you really do feel very nurtured and taken care of. But then all of a sudden you can really feel like, yeah, I can do this myself. I'm okay. I really don't need you to do this for me. And I need to learn. This is very prevalent in helicopter parents. Like their kids end up not really learning grit. They don't learn how to do things for themselves. And we learn this helplessness about, oh, okay, well, I'll just sit back and let somebody else do this for me. And then we never grow up either. So it's this not adulting thing can also happen. And that's really because the victim and the rescuer keep each other in this kind of role. And the language of the persecutor is, you're an idiot, you're a dumbass, everything, you never get anything right. They try and rule by a iron fist, thinking that that's going to be a motivator, because it may have been for them, but to the other person that's on the receiving end, it's not really a motivator. It can be really hurtful. And then all we're doing as children is also learning that, or learning that as an adult if we're in an adult relationship. So that, I once had there was a guy that I worked with when I was in my corporate life, and he had this line that every time there was a new sales team or a new group of people that were coming in the marketing and sales department, he would show up, and he was this big guy, and he used to say, this is like the quintessential kind of persecutor archetype demographic you could imagine. This big guy walks in and he says, your ass is grass, and I'm the lawnmower. So if you don't get it together, I'm the lawnmower. You're not going to exist. You're going to get cut. So, that's not really motivating. That is overtaking. That is controlling. And so if the internal dialogue is, what am I going to do to one up? How am I going to win? It's very competitive. So that's what's going on. And then, a lot of name calling in the internal space.
I would imagine that in our kind of world, probably more people identify with rescuer than the other two, and I think particularly helping or healing professions and focusing on healing. Anything that you particularly sort of it's important for rescuers to understand, because a lot of times we have a more of a sense of a noble association with that pattern.
You got it. And in fact, actually, what's interesting? If you study obituaries, you will see that, oh my goodness, this person, they never stopped all of their committees. They had 3 different cancers in their lifetimes, and they never stopped giving. They were always doing. It's like we monumentalize this sort of behavior of rescuer. And so we think that there's going to be rich rewards on the other side, but oftentimes it's not. It's actually a road to emptiness. And I've seen so many healers go down, lose their lives, because they overgave. They didn't know their limits. By the way, one of the signature things of rescuer and codependency is breast cancer. Constantly feeding others from the very milk of nurturing, this is metaphoric, others to the point where we don't have anything. And that's just not okay. This landscape has to shift now. And you're right. This is something that I deeply recover from, and I am constantly monitoring for myself, because it is the area I operate in the world as a healer. I have done the rescuing life and the codependent life and all of that. And at the beginning, it was very, very much unconscious. And as I have sought to make it more conscious in my life, I've had to get very deliberate about, okay, did the person ask me for my assistance? And if they didn't ask, because one of the key telltale things is that the rescuer will jump in because they see the need that somebody else has before the other person realizes it. And they just want to take care of business. It's really coming from a beautiful altruistic place in some regard, but not always, because there's the deep emptiness that's inside that we're still trying to heal something from a need that did not get met from when we were children.
I think that's such a key point. So circling back with the boundaries aspect, you've mentioned that a couple of times, that it's sort of, there's like a boundary invasion if you're asking or if you're injecting your help without a request. Or how do you start to repattern that in terms of, well, actually all three, just really sort of focusing more around the boundaries and the being able to work within your own energy and field rather than get so involved in other people?
Yeah. So, a lot of times victims and rescuers will not feel that it's okay to get angry. They will stuff it, which is also why it turns to autoimmune or, other digestive issues or just issues that tend to have sort of this recycling kind of pattern or a recurrence of cancers, especially breast cancers or things like that. So it's because we have a fear of getting angry. And maybe oftentimes, I won't say that's a universal across the board, but we oftentimes saw how anger was for other people and didn't ever want to be like that. So we make a determination at a young age, well, I don't want to be like my mom or my dad who was just angry all the time or fought, or I don't want to be like that. So I'm going to choose this other way of being. So we don't actually use a natural innate anger is a good thing to be in touch with because it actually helps us set boundaries. But if we didn't have it modeled to us as a kid well, then we oftentimes won't know how to turn it on. And so it would be like, sometimes I kind of describe this as like if you were a superhero and you were still learning what your power, how to use it. And sometimes it's just like, whoa, I shot up to the moon because I just learned to fly. I only meant to go to that, to leap a tall building. So it's like wanting to dial in the anger. And we're not trying to annihilate people, but we are trying to be honest with our no. Like to really honor, no, that's a no. I don't really have time to help you go move your house this weekend. And a lot of rescuers will say, sure, I'll drop everything. I'll be there now. And it's like, no, there's a boundary that we get to recognize within ourselves about what is our capability to give, the capacity that we have to give. And using a little bit of anger helps us to get involved in our true emotions. So we need to get to exercise it like a muscle to get comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Do you want to guide us in a practice to help work with the healthy boundaries?
Sure. Yeah. So let's do something here. If you can grab a pen and paper or just make a mental list. And as you look at these kind of questions that I'm going to pose for you here, think about where in your life are you not saying no, but you know you need to say no? Is there a person, a situation where you always say yes, but you really do know deep down inside that you probably shouldn't? You shouldn't do that thing. You should say no. And oftentimes this can be in a job, in a family situation, church, book club. Where are we saying no? School activities for the kids. I find a lot of people overcommit. And then somatically, where do you feel that no in your body? Where did it get stuck? Where did it just not come quite out? Or maybe you can't even find it. Look for where the no is in your body somatically. And as you just be in touch with it there, just acknowledge it. And then tell it, I'm going to honor you. In my next practice, in my next opportunity, I am going to honor my inner no. And I may have to let people know in my life that I'm going to start honoring my inner no. Just give yourself the permission to exercise this like a new muscle. It helps everybody grow. Okay, so now moving into who or what do you trust? If you just list out who or what do you really have trust in? And you can go back to these lists as you think about it and add to it. And who or what do you have faith in? Oftentimes we find our faith is transient. It depends on things. That's not real faith. What do you really, really have faith in? As you sit with that, and now, when you look back at these lists, are you on them? Are you listed as a part of your life that you have faith and trust in? Oftentimes we leave ourselves out. Do you trust yourself? Do you have faith in yourself? Do you show up for your no? Do you show up for your personal yes? As rescuers, oftentimes we negotiate that boundary. And now just drop the lists for a moment and let that clear. And if you're having a realization that, wow, okay, this is something for me to think about, consider myself, consider my needs. Drop into our heart. And as we drop into our hearts, immediately we want to know, we want to remember, we are worthy. We were born worthy. We were born whole and complete. We don't need to negotiate. We were born the gift. And just say this in an affirmatory way. I am enough. I have enough. And my being is enough. We are all right on time. We stay in our heart. offering divine love. We are all so blessed and so guided. Sometimes we forget. But as we drop in our hearts, we know, we remember. And as we drop in our hearts here in this moment, we ask for a soul connection to help us remember what we may have forgotten, our worthiness, our being created in divine love and light. And we can allow ourselves to be led and guided from this divine place. And if we will notice ever so slightly that when we come from a place of victim, rescuer, or persecutor, things get a little quiet in the guidance department. It's where we are separated. So as we be in our wholeness, let us restore, let us remember, be reminded. We are absolutely created in divine love and light. We are created in divine love and light. We are ever sustained and protected in divine love and light. And now with a little squeeze of, like you're giving yourself a hug, to say, thank me. So often we say, thank you on the outside. Thank me. Thank me. Thank me. I'm doing it. I'm having this experience. And I have an opportunity to love myself even more. And so let our ground be reset. And as we open our eyes here, allow this remembrance to shine through our eyes. To come from a place of knowing, deep knowing.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, to really shift our whole ground of how we approach this. So how do you recommend that people build on that meditation and keep integrating the change?
Yeah, great question. So recognize where we are negotiating with ourselves. Where did the no get stuck? It's a practice. And to put it into practice with people who are safe in our worlds, to go to them and say, hey, I need to do something because my health sort of depends on it. And healthy relationships depend on it. Will you help me practice setting boundaries? I need to practice saying no. I need to practice showing up for myself. And I need to practice hearing responses from people if there was anger, if there was something where I overreacted. So finding a confidant or somebody to work with and buddy up can be really helpful. And just notice, if you weren't on that list, what is it going to take for you to get on that list? For you to trust yourself and have faith in yourself. So those are some practices.
Yeah. Lovely. You mentioned a few times there about like really loving yourself, embracing yourself. So it just seems like this unconditional self-love really sounds like it's at the core of this work. So maybe share a little bit more about how to cultivate that if we didn't get it mirrored fully from the outside, as most people didn't.
Yeah. And actually, thank you, Stephen. That's very right on time and astute for you to see it as well, is the activities that happen on the drama triangle are very much based in conditional love. Most of us learned conditions. If I do this, this happens. You know, it's like a tit for tat. I always say I used to build databases in my past, and there's a relationship to if this, then that. Well, that language should really be left for databases, not for negotiating our relationship with our kids, or, yes, of course, there's going to be some of that, but we really want to be mindful of this language where we're basing things and conditions and behaviors on, is the condition just right for you to get a reward? Really look at and see, is that really the direction that you want to take this? It's one thing to celebrate a win. By all means, we should celebrate. We all need the dopamine and the oxytocin with our connection of celebrating when something works. But if we're doing it out of a manipulation, then that's kind of going on the wrong end of how we're doing conditional love. So the antidote, and something that came, and it came years into the process of this unfolding, of the solution, if you will, like, what the heck are the answers off the drama triangle? It is a practice to be able to reach unconditional self-love. And one of my greatest teachers said, what we need to be learning is how to love another from the overflow of the love that we have for ourselves. The overflow. So it means that our cup is full. Oxygen mask on first, making sure that our needs are met before we go and overgive. There are going to be times where we do it, sure. But and we're here to experience the experience. So we're going to get all of the components, if you will. But coming back to unconditional self-love also means that we're honoring the promises that we make to ourselves. So if we say, okay, I'm going to, and this is very much the energy of the solar plexus as well, that it's a personal will. It is the center of where I make decisions and I land on my decisions, or am I negotiating away my power? So am I saying, okay, I am going to do my workouts, I'm going to do my meditations, I'm going to go for the walk, I'm going to be in nature. I'm going to do those things first and foremost so that my cup is full before I go and overdo and overgive. So that's some of the ways that you can put it into practice as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you have further recommendations for folks who are in some healing profession of one kind or another? I think there's a lot of good awareness around the rescuer pattern, but maybe how do you start to see and notice these patterns in others as well, so you can kind of understand how to sort of really be most helpful in a healing capacity?
Yeah. So one of the things that I will say, especially if you notice a persecutor type, is you notice you have to choose your timing, right? Because there are going to be people who are angry just because they're angry all the time. But you know that there's something really in the underbelly of what is making them angry. And yet you know it's there, but you don't know what it is. So in a very grounded moment, not in the most hot-headed of times, you would engage with a person and touch, if that's safe and available, and of course with permission, of course, is ask the person, what are you so angry about? And what they will likely say, I'm so mad at this and that and this person, and they'll go into blame. They'll go slinging stuff in other kind of directions in order to get it off of what's really going on. So if you want to help a person get in touch with that kind of persecutor nature, you say, no, that's not what it is. There's something deeper. What are you really angry about? Now, you're not going to get your answer likely right then and there. But what you will do is set the wheels in motion. Because typically also the people who are demonstrating narcissistic traits or emotional overreactions or things like that, they're very smart. They really know exactly what they're doing. A lot of it can be unconscious, and from driven from a subconscious place, once again, about getting the needs met. But that question, and the mind does not like open answers. It doesn't like open loops. It wants answers. So when you give the mind a question or a person a question who's a thoughtful person, and you know that to be the case, and you give them that, like, what's really going on? Why are you so angry? The wheels will start turning. Something will start to come online and create ahas. We can't give other people the ahas. We can use the Socratic method of asking questions to help a person to be able to reach that on their own, which is much more empowering at the end of the day. So going to the next part, I would say, is to the victim, asking the victim of themselves, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? It will be immediately sort of the knee-jerk reaction is, I need so-and-so to do this for me. I need this and this and this to happen. I need to pull on this lever and all of these other things are going to happen. And no, what we have the opportunity to get present with when we're falling into a victim pattern is dropping into the real need. What is it that I need right now? It's not about what somebody else can do for me. It's about the need that I know is deep down inside that really only I can get to. And when the rescuer does not jump in and go to rescue the victim, then the victim will have a chance to ask that, or the rescuer can change the dynamic by saying or asking a question instead of, what can I do for you? You ask the person that tends to be in the victim place, what do you need? What do you need? And those questions just change the paradigm. They change the operation system. You know, most of us are operating, when you think about, if you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, whatever age you are, the operating system, if it's still the same one since childhood, I think it's outdated. I think it needs an update. And so these questions help to update, if you will, our own operating system. Not that I mean to reduce us to computers, because that happens all too often, but computers were more modeled after us. It's not the other way around.
I'd love for you to paint a picture for a little bit where we're going as we evolve out of the drama triangle. Where do we head? What's the more enlightened version that we're moving into?
This is so good. Where we're moving into is empowerment, and you know there's a lot that's in here. We would need multiple hours in this time to really get this unpacked, but unconditional self-love is the biggest of the big. Empowered surrender. And I realize that word surrender has so many triggers to it. And still, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's white flag. It's throwing up. It's acquiescing your power. It's laying on your belly and your arms going up, and just like it's the animalistic kind of surrender. And there's a rewiring. You know what we were teaching, what I do teach in the Alta Major is the fact that we have all these esoteric bridges in our body, and our language now needs a bridge to how the divine sees surrender. And that really has an opportunity for upgrading at the codon level, at the DNA level of us. Surrender wasn't meant that way of give up all your power. That was sort of hijacked by churches, if you will, and other institutions that are like, yeah, we'll take your power. No problem. We know exactly how to use your power. We're going to get you to do all these kinds of things in a codependent way, and then tell you your life sort of depends on it. And, I remember I'm a theologian with no dogma. So this is really coming into an empowered surrender means a rewiring of our nervous system.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Tiffany, this is so illuminating to hear you talk about the drama triangle and understand the repercussions in our lives of and the opportunity really to move into this place of deep empowerment and a more empowered surrender. So let's talk more explicitly about how people can go further, since I know you've just been touching on some of the highlights, and there's a lot more in terms of practices and actual deep shifts that can happen around this when people engage more fully with it. So we're really delighted that Tiffany has agreed to partner with us on a brand new program. It is called Free Yourself from the Drama Triangle, Empower Self-Love, Conscious Relationships, and Your Intuitive Gifts. You can find it at the URL dramatrianglesolution.com, dramatrianglesolution.com. It's a 7-week program. There's no prerequisites. It really gives you an opportunity to follow your own instinct into this. If you have an intuition, a nudge, or recognition during today's call, chances are you can learn a lot from this program. So, Tiffany, I'd love for you to share in your own words really about, like, how do people's lives shift as a result to become conscious, aware, and shift these core patterns. And then I'll read out the module titles. You give us a preview of what's coming in each.
Yeah, beautiful. Freedom. In a word, freedom. And if you think about what it is that we can do with our personal freedom, I think we have been normalized in such a pathological way of being conditioned to be the rescuer, and you're the do-gooder in the world, you're the people pleaser, you're the one that makes everything work and all of this sort of stuff. But if we're really looking at our health and looking at our life and take stock in our lives, where are we really at? And are we living the life that we want to be living? And do I have the resources to give even as much as I have been giving? So the freedom to come to realization, I've seen incredible shifts in family dynamics, business leadership. There's, a lot is changing in business leadership. And it's actually something that I have built into this course as well, is to talk about leadership, because we all need to be leaders in our own lives. And if we're not, then somebody else is doing the leading for us. And then that means that we're entrapped in a way. And that is not freedom. That is not sovereignty. That is not me choosing out of what it is that I really desire. And if we all started doing that, we're going to have such healthier relationships with one another and grow our kids up in a way that are not codependent and not responsible for everybody else's needs. Yes, we want compassion. Yes, we want empathy, but we don't want to be so overly empathic that we lose the sense of who we are. So this knowing our proper boundaries, knowing when giving too much is really, what are the signs of giving too much, and because that's individual. That is, everybody needs to know that for themselves. And for the victim to really start coming into a place of agency where they can see that what they've actually been doing is negotiating away their power. And for the persecutor to ultimately realize that the way to get everyone to get on the same page is through cooperation, not competition. So when these paradigm shifts start to happen in any dynamic, love relationship, business relationship, friendships, family, all of it, they all shift. And I see it over and over and over again. I've got pages and pages of testimonials from people that have taken this course in the past.
Sounds fantastic. Great. Well, Module 1 is called Ease the Survivalist Mindset of Your Inner Victim to Activate Greater Inner Agency, a Deeper Sense of Safety, and Self-Love.
Yeah. So lightning bolt moments happen in the first day, because it's one of those, oh my God, I had no idea that I have been a victim. It's really much more common than we realize. It was a huge aha for me to put some of these details together. So lightning bolt moments galore in the very first session of, oh, wow, now I can really put it together how I've been doing this dance in this way, because if we're on one corner of the drama triangle, we're going to find ourselves on the other corners too. So we're going to untangle that.
Module 2, create healthy boundaries for your inner rescuer to instill a sense of inner value, worthiness, and self-love.
It's exactly that. Because once we realize that our rescuer tendencies have been anything but helpful in the end, oh my gosh, it's a little devastating. it's a little, we are coming from the right place in our hearts, and we really want to make it very obvious that we have a new realization, a new level of awareness of what is motivating my giving. And am I really coming from a place of fullness or emptiness, or do I myself need something? So we'll get into that there.
Module 3, free your inner persecutor from reactivity and fear to allow authenticity, vulnerability, and meaningful connections with others.
So the persecutor, as we've been talking about, oftentimes is not even aware of this activity. And yet all of us, victim, rescuer, and persecutors, need to get in a healthy relationship with our anger. So in this module, we're going to feel into what is that like, put it into practice, and how to establish more and better boundaries, and also how to handle people who may be the persecutor in our lives, and how it is that we can not just survive, but come out thriving in those relationships.
Module 4, let go of drama and dysfunction to reclaim your sovereignty and rewire your nervous system for greater health and well-being.
So letting go has everything to do with, it's one of these surrender kind of words as well, where we think, well, shoot, if I just let this go, then that person gets away with stuff. And that's not what's happening in real letting go. Letting go helps us to create a perspective shift. And how do we nurture a perspective shift within us? So each one of these modules builds on top of each other, and it would be an absolutely incomplete program if we didn't have all of what we have built into this. It's letting go is not the obvious, and we need to see what the practices are of where we've been practicing letting go in an unhealthy way and how we move it to a healthy dynamic.
Module 5, release limiting beliefs and false security to bounce back from betrayal and revive trust in yourself and faith in life.
Really, really important is and this is what we touched on a little bit in this meditation, is who and what do we have trust and faith in? This is where we really get kind of boomeranged around, where it's easy to go right back to the drama triangle. The idea is that once we get onto the empowered surrender triangle, which is what I call it, that we don't get off of it. And this cornerstone, it's the keystone, is building trust and faith in ourselves and having experiences, but also a proper forgiveness process really helps. It is not condoning other people's behavior. And so we're going to unpack faith and trust and what it means. And it's not your typical definitions of what they have been from a societal point of view.
Module 6, surrender unconscious willfulness to empower conscious choice making and creative will.
So here's where we look at this word surrender with even more attentive activity towards what will bring self-love. Where are the resistances in our lives that keep us from actually living based on our pure guidance, pure divine love, and true altruism? Not rescuer altruism, but true altruism. And we don't get there unless we have the understanding of being empowered, being driven by our soul's plan and purpose, and how it is that we can turn on our own inner sovereignty and meet the needs of ourselves and others at the same time. We're in this life together, and we need to work together so that we can do it holistically.
And finally, Module 7, step onto the empowered surrender triangle and a life of self-sovereignty, freedom, and unconditional love.
It's putting all of these details together that now allow us to not fall into the habits of boomeranging back and forth. So now putting all of these details together and making new vignettes, if you will, and new ways of relating to different relationships in our lives, how we put those things into practice.
Well, what a great program. So practical and really goes to the heart of how we create these dysfunctional dynamics and put ourselves in boxes that just really don't serve. So, and the pathway to freeing ourselves from them. So really great, Tiffany. So I'll share a few more other things about it. So again, you can find all the details at the URL dramatrianglesolution.com. So you get not only the 7 90-minute live sessions with Tiffany, which is going to include interactive exercises, Q&A time. It's also going to include recordings, both video and audio, of every session, as well as word-for-word transcripts to enable you to go back and study and highlight things that you might have missed. You'll have weekly exercise for home. There's a Facebook community to support and deepen your experience and also build international community around this work. And on the page, you'll see a number of very robust bonuses that help enhance the value of taking this journey. There's a masterclass on conscious leadership with Tiffany and Teresa Fritsch. This is called From Dysfunctional Drama to Empowered Freedom. Really seminal insights there. There's a dialogue between Tiffany and Dr. Christian Northrup. It's called What Do Energy Vampires, Empaths, and Lightworkers Have in Common? Would you love you to hear a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, that is so eye-opening when you really see how the being overly empathic, being the pleaser, being the rescuer, we attract, I have been a poster child for it, we attract the energy vampires. And this is, you know, I describe the person who gets married, the rescuer that marries the narcissist, is the match made in hell. Well, that is often how the energy dynamic is going with the vampire energies. And being able to recognize it very early on so that you can either navigate away from it or know what to do when you're in the midst of it. So yes, it is a masterclass in here are some things that you can do in order to undo what you got yourself into potentially, or avoid it.
And I also want to draw attention to one bonus on the page that's their special bonus if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time, Avoiding the Abyss of Victimhood. This is with Tiffany and Dr. Mario Martinez. I want to share a little bit about that special bonus.
Sure. So Dr. Mario Martinez is shift faculty, and he's become a friend, a dear friend, and so respect his work in biocognition and neuropsychology. And in this conversation that we had together, which is a little bit like a masterclass, if you will, actually all of them are like a masterclass. And what we got into is teasing apart that victim and victimhood, and looking at how it is that as centenarians, which is this is fascinating, is the largest growth in the population right now are people becoming centenarians. Well, how do we do that? We don't do it from a victim mindset. We don't do it from victimhood. And that's what we get into, and with some solutions. It's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Well, that's a great extra reason to sign up right away. So Avoiding the Abyss of Victimhood, and that's your special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight. So we've kept the investment really accessible for this program. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to begin on July 6th, run Thursdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. I particularly also encourage you to go to the page at dramatrianglesolution.com and read through some of the testimonials, because it really gives you a sense for how much benefit can happen when you really take a dive into work with Tiffany. She's really at the leading edge of her field and really integrates a lot of great concepts and practices together that really help you open up to new possibilities, and you get a sense for how she's changed lives there. So again, that's the new program is Free Yourself from the Drama Triangle, Empower Self-Love, Conscious Relationships, and Your Intuitive Gifts. And you can find it all in detail at dramatrianglesolution.com. And you get that special bonus, Avoiding the Abyss of Victimhood, when you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So Tiffany, we're at the end of our time. A minute or two left for you to, any other reflections for folks who are considering going deeper into the work with Drama Triangle with you?
Thank you for this opportunity, Stephen, and to really bring something to light that it's been in our unconscious sort of terrain as humans. And, Carl Jung had a beautiful phrase that he said, the quote is, "Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate." And there's a difference between fate and destiny. Our destiny has to do with our choices. And if we choose, we can so choose to stay entrapped in drama, or we can find the freedom and we can actually live according to our soul's journey. I really believe that we're on an emotional revolution here, and it's time for all of us to wake up and realize the sovereign power that we have and not continue what I call the insaneness of sameness. I think we're done with it. We need to be done with it. We have to advance ourselves on our soul's path and as evolutionary humans.
Love it. I totally resonate with that call to transformation. So thank you, Tiffany, for being at the forefront of charting the pathway forward and showing us how the drama triangle, if we lift and change and transform that we can liberate so much more in our lives. So thank you for this pioneering work. And again, for all of those who would like to go further, you're warmly welcome to do so at dramatrianglesolution.com, and you get the special bonus with Dr. Mario Martinez when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you so much. Many blessings.
Many blessings. Thank you.